Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MATB's Tech Talk, where we will be joined by Sarah O'Donnell here shortly. We ask that you keep yourself on mute throughout the Tech Talk, and if you have any questions, to please post them into the chat. And we will have a Q&A section at the end. Without any further ado, we're going to do some quick intros with MATB and 757 Collab. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Julie Stark.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. We're excited that you could join us here for another exciting Tech Talk. I look forward to hearing what Sarah O'Donnell has to tell us about MITRE, which is a great partner to the government and industry partners. So just very briefly, so we're hosting here from the beautiful offices of the 757 Assembly and our 757 Collab, which is inside the Assembly building in downtown Norfolk. When I say we, I'm talking about the NavalX Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge. This is an organization, the parent organization being NavalX at Office of Naval Research, and our particular tech bridge is comprised of 3 local Navy commands. We have Gerald Walker from Naval Information Warfare Center Atlantic, Hampton Roads, Julie Stark, that's me. I'm from Carderock in the Norfolk Detachment, and our colleague Roy Weiser, who's from NSWC Dahlgren Dam Activity. The tech bridge is here to help be a super connector between industry partners and the Naval Research Enterprise. So we're looking for technology solutions that can help address our gaps. And while we're interested in working with all the partners that can provide those solutions, we're kind of focused on trying to find those non-traditional partners and help the non-traditional partners learn how to work with the government. And so we partner with lots of other government organizations in this regional area and other areas. So if you're interested in learning more about the tech bridge, you can schedule a meeting with that QR code right there to meet with us individually, and then you can follow us on any of the different social organizations like LinkedIn, where we post summaries of a lot of the work that we've done, many of which are resources to non-traditional partners. And we also advertise and broadcast for upcoming events. So if you have any questions about the tech bridge, you can post it in the chat, and one of us will get back to you either during this meeting or later. And again, you can schedule a meeting to meet with us or to start attending more of the Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge events. So at this point, we are happy to have our KIA partner, our Partnership Intermediary Agreement partner, the Managing Director from 757 Collab, that's going to give you a little bit of information about that spectacular organization. So Eileen Brewer from 757 Collab.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. My name is Eileen Brewer. I'm the Executive Director for 757 Accelerate. We are in the Norfolk area. However, we support startups that are all across the state. 757 Collab is our umbrella leader where we file for our grants under 757 Collab, and then we offer 3 different types of resources into the community, starting with the 757 Startup Studios, which is a physical space in downtown Norfolk in the Assembly building. We offer 6 months rent-free access to work in our co-working space, and we deliver programming once a week or twice a week for the 6 months. This is if you're at ideation and you're trying to decide whether or not you can turn your research project or your idea into an actual product. The next service we offer is 757 Accelerate, which is an intensive 12-week program that's being run once a year in the fall. That next cohort will start on August 14 and run for 12 weeks. At the end of the 12 weeks, we do what's called an investor roadshow, where we actually take the startups out and introduce them to multiple investor groups in the region. The third resource that we offer in the community is 757 Angels. This is an angel group with 130 members. They're one of the top 3 in the nation, and they're looking to invest in Virginia-based startups or startups that can prove that they will have an economic development impact in the Virginia area. All 3 of these have their own websites, their own schedules, their own requirements. You don't have to attend any of them in any order. You can jump in and look at any one and apply to any that you feel is a good fit for you. And we're here to help startups and innovators in the region grow into successful businesses. If you have any questions, feel free to send a message in the chat. Thank you.
Great, so now we are happy to welcome our invited speaker today is from MITRE, which she'll tell you all about that, but it's one of the key industry partners. And Sarah O'Donnell is the Chief Engineer for Naval Programs. So at this point, we're happy to welcome you, Sarah, and I'll turn it over to you to finish the introduction and tell everybody about MITRE. Thank you.
Julie, thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to be here and speak with everyone today. I want to extend my thanks to the Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge and NavalX, especially Julie and Jerry, for the invitation and partnership, and also my gratitude to Eileen from the 757 Collab and Tina, who have helped kind of prepare in advance of today. I know a great deal goes into the preparations of this, so I really appreciate the team's support. Before I get started, is everyone able to see my briefing?
Sarah, we can see it if you wouldn't mind going on the slideshow view. That way I think people can see it better, but we can see it.
Okay, maybe it's on the wrong screen. Give me just a sec.
Okay.
How's that? Any better?
No, it's still the same. I think if you go like it's now on the very top, like the
There.
slideshow view with a little arrow on it, kind of up by the auto save buttons. It's up there now.
It sounds like she has two
Screens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you want to stop sharing and try sharing to the other screen? I mean, if not, it's not a huge deal.
About now, any better?
Now we're not seeing your screen, so I think you have to share again.
There we go. It's
Now your desktop we're seeing.
All right. Apologize for the.
That's okay. That looks great, Sarah. Perfect.
Fantastic. Okay, thanks for your patience. So as Julie said, my name is Sarah O'Donnell. I'm the Chief Engineer for Naval Programs with the MITRE Corporation. MITRE is a nonprofit organization. We administer FFRDCs, or federally funded research and development centers for the federal government. And I've been with MITRE for over 20 years. I actually started as an intern, a super nerd in mechanical engineering that went into experimental physics. And throughout the course of my career, I've served in a lot of different roles. I started as an experimentalist, developing proof of concept capabilities in electronic materials and condensed matter. And then after an inquisitive combat development director showed up in my lab at MITRE asking questions on the limitations of power systems, I found myself leading a bunch of teams developing capabilities and doing independent assessments for the special operations forces that I led for the past 13 years. And through the course of that, I found myself really intrigued by the concept of strategic surprise. And that is what led me into more sophisticated problems at the national level, and subsequently into the role that I now find myself leading our naval programs as the chief engineer. One of the most important things and aspects about strategic surprise, I think, also applies to innovation and invention. And it's the fact that some of the most impactful ideas are generated outside of the larger bureaucracy. So this cognitive asymmetry is really an opportunity if we can grab onto it. And whether an adversary is going to use it for us, or whether it's between small businesses and big government, there is a true advantage here. And it's exactly why bridging innovation is so important. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit today about how FFRDCs help small businesses, share a couple of success stories, and maybe help to inform the group here a little bit about what we do for the government between academic and industry and small business partners. So FFRDCs actually originated about 70 years ago. They've been vital to growth and security for the government. We've actually supported the government in defense, transportation, energy, civil administration, homeland security, atmospheric sciences, all kinds of things. But if you ask anybody what an FFRDC is, I'd say most people generally wouldn't know, and even some folks in the community would be hard pressed to really explain its history or purpose or how we operate. So I thought I'd take an opportunity just to give you a quick overview of FFRDCs. We're part of a three-legged stool that supports government research, technology, system acquisition, and even policy. And a lot of these legs, or these three legs, are between commercial industry, academic, and nonprofit organizations with government employees. Each of these players approach problems from a different angle, and but all play a really important role in innovation. FFRDCs actually date back to the World War II era and its aftermath. After the Manhattan Project concluded, a lot of really smart talent was going to industry, and government agencies realized they needed to figure out how to take advantage of the critical mass of this knowledge base that may not be available in the standard civil service environment. Julie, of course, excluded. She is definitely one of those preeminent scientists that we retained. But in order to do that, they created FFRDC model around two key needs. One being that they need to provide the government with access to specialized, agile workforce that can respond very, very quickly to some of these critical challenges. But second, and uniquely, they had to operate outside of the standard marketplace so that there were no commercial conflicts of interest to compromise objectivity within those particular individuals. And that is a really crucial point. We don't market, we don't manufacture the systems and the technology that the government acquires. And this is sort of the heart of what an FFRDC does as part of that third leg of the stool. We provide analysis-based support to inform government decisions as an impartial third party. And the original motivation behind the formation of FFRDCs after the 70 years, it's still relevant today. So with this unique vantage point, we're often referred to as quasi-government in congressional discussions due to this unique role. The FFRDC administrator, and MITRE in particular as an administrator of FFRDCs, is somewhat unique because we actually administer almost the largest number of FFRDCs at 6 FFRDCs for the government. The slide here just shows a little bit of the evolution in time. NSEC, the National Security Engineering Center, the FFRDC I work for, was actually established for the support the Department of Defense following the Manhattan Project in order to retain those unbiased technical SMEs. But because of the diversity of FFRDCs that MITRE administers, we have an extraordinarily wide range of expertise. And we draw on that to reduce redundancy. We can apply solutions that cut across multiple different parts of government and deal with larger whole of government challenges. If you're interested in knowing more about the other FFRDCs, the National Science Foundation maintains a list of all the FFRDCs for the US government, and they deal with policy, research and development, systems engineering and integration, and the NSEC is actually one of those systems engineering and integration FFRDCs. So we all are coming here in part, I think, because many of us recognize that there is a challenge, there is a problem that we would like to help solve for our national security. And I'd say that part of this is that the National Science Board actually found that federally funding for research and development has increased from 127 billion in 2010 to about 139 billion in 2019, which is a fairly sizable bump. However, that share of R&D funded by federal government declined from 31% to 21%. And this decline occurred across all research types and sectors. And the largest portion of R&D is actually coming from commercial industry. So how do we take better advantage of the funding that is available as a partner to the government and as interested innovators? And how can we more rapidly integrate into the government acquisition process, which can be very challenging? And so if I were there in person, I'd probably stand up and ask for a show of hands to see how many folks here have encountered some of the barriers that you see on the right-hand side in the gray list. And I would imagine that many of us have encountered those. So one of the opportunities that FFRDCs provide is a potential answer to part of that, which is how to create, how to operate within an innovation ecosystem to help rapidly deliver cutting-edge solutions. So one of our answers is this concept of bridging innovation. Our commitment to the public interest compels us to establish a way to bridge innovation as a key aspect of our partnership with the United States government. Our vision with bridging innovation is to actually help build pathways to discover, accelerate, and deliver innovation from non-traditional sources. We work closely with the primes that operate and get a lot of the larger contracts with the US government. But we also know how important it is to, going back to that cognitive asymmetry, what are some of the other unique ideas that can be brought to the table, and how do we help lower those barriers to entry for those unique partners? So what we do is help the government leverage commercial technologies to reduce acquisition time, cost, and mitigate risk. Our idea to quickly deliver capabilities to the government by supporting and harnessing the power of the innovation community is really at the core of what motivates us to do this. And we're trying to create more opportunities for commercial industry to move into new markets, or maybe markets they didn't even know that they had access to, which I have a few examples of later in the brief, for non-dilutive funding. You'll see in these gray boxes below, there are 5 of them. Those are our pillars to bridging innovation. The define pillar is focused on developing an intentional and comprehensive strategic plan for successful transition with that non-traditional partner. The immerse pillar is focused on embedding into and convening at regional elements, technical centers of gravity, in order to help build those trusted community relationships and develop a greater understanding of government challenges through those engagements. The third pillar, scouting and matching, that's where we leverage our network to identify sources and capabilities that address government challenges. As I mentioned before, we're operating across whole of government. I like to joke that we are nerds with access and placement because we work in close partnership across a multiple different parts of the United States government, whether it's the IRS, the Department of Defense, Federal Aviation Administration, and many others. And then transition pillar, the last pillar, that is where we try to bridge that valley of death to deliver capabilities rapidly through streamlined contracting methods that we can help identify. So how this operates might sound like motherhood and apple pie. Does it actually work? So to be fair, this slide goes through the process that we have. We have about a 1 in 5 success rate in our partnerships. So we're not entirely successful, but I'd say 20% of the time we're able to make connections and help bridge transition to a contract in partnership with the government and the industry of interest. You probably recall that FFRDCs operate outside the standard marketplace to avoid conflicts of interest. So we aren't here to acquire your company. We're prohibited by law from competing with you, in fact. Our internal research and development, we do have allocations inside MITRE, but all of our developed capabilities are government purpose rights. So often we'll develop something that can be licensed to an organization by the government, and then we help you succeed in implementing that and productizing that capability, or partner with you in order to make it even better and have greater order of magnitude impact. That latter point is critical. We don't market or manufacture the systems that the government must acquire. So as a part of that third leg of the stool, we're helping to provide some of this analysis. So some of our partnership is helping to provide an independent assessment of a capability and maybe share it with organizations in order to freely connect with government organizations that could benefit from your idea. NavalX has been a partner, in fact, in the Northeast in order to serve as a partner and have a successful transition of capability. So to the point of us being nerds with access and placement, we do have a global network. This is some of the organizations we've successfully partnered with on the national side. And most recently, last week, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey and Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll and leaders within our organization announced our Blue Tech Open Collaboration, Experimentation, and Acceleration Network, known as Blue Tech Ocean. This initiative was now announced last Thursday in our Bedford campus, which is home to a state-of-the-art laboratory known as our Blue Tech Lab, currently under construction. With a 2-year, $2.2 million grant from Massachusetts Technology Collaborative that's helping to fund Blue Ocean's efforts. The majority of that funding is actually going to accelerate maritime innovation and grow the region's workforce and Blue Tech capabilities. The participating researchers operate within MITRE's new Blue Nerve network. Our Blue Nerve technology connects labs across New England and eventually the country to different undersea testing capabilities. And the idea here is to potentially enable seamless integration between lab equipment, modeling software, tools, and different types of data. And at each of these Blue Nerve nodes, researchers in separate physical locations can conduct experiments and access real-time data as if they're co-located. So I mentioned the Blue Tech Test Facility. It's one of many facilities and mentorship that we have available in the support ecosystem. Whether you're looking for a government contracting authority funding opportunity, or a connector, or a new connecting with a new domain, for example, or want to see what are the federal incubator resources that are available to you. We have resources at all of these technical readiness levels of your capability. I mentioned the NERV network, which we alluded to for undersea test facilities for Blue Nerve, but we also have our primary NERV network, and we have open source information on government acquisition. There's information on other transactional authorities for our non-traditional contractors and examples of how our work to change government acquisition for the better, which includes reports like our Deliver Uncompromised report. That's a strategy for supply chain security and resilience. You can learn more about those by going to aida.mitre.org, which has some additional details and resources. We also maintain a globally accessible knowledge base for adversary tactics and techniques for all of you cybersecurity buffs. And that's based on real world observations with our attack project. This attack knowledge base, it's a foundation for the development of specific threat models and methodologies that's in the private sector, government, and in the cybersecurity product and service community. You can find the framework, all those resources at attack.mitre.org. And that's just a few examples of our capabilities and developments that are available to you to utilize for yourselves as you're connecting with government. I mentioned Blue Tech Ocean. With that, we have this laboratory that's scheduled to open in a few months. It presents a great opportunity for those interested in developing, supporting, or testing undersea capabilities for government sponsors like NOAA, US Navy, Marine Corps, Department of Transportation, and many others. We have our experimental capabilities there. They include a lot of different platforms, the flexibility to transmit and receive between 110 hertz to 200 kilohertz, lots of software-defined radios, portable power amplifiers. We've got some matched hydrophones, portable preamps, acoustic communications modems, custom buoys, micro UUVs, just to name a few of the technical capabilities that are a part of this resource in our Bedford, Massachusetts campus. I noted some of the information here on this slide, but there's a lot more going on there. For anyone interested in learning more about that or visiting the facility, please feel to reach out, and we'll make sure to get you connected. The idea behind this test to open it up, not just to do government testing, but also to open it up to other parties to come in and take advantage of this. We know that test tanks are in high demand, and this is one more option available as you're developing undersea test capabilities. There's a lot of different bridging that we're doing across. This is just a illustration of some of those partners that we're working with. And there's just a broad breadth and scope related. And this is just Blue Tech Labs, some examples of the for-profit and business partners we have, as well as other FFRDCs and other UARCs, and then our government sponsors that we work closely with to develop those capabilities across the entire maritime space. One of the successes that we've had with Blue Tech Ocean already is this idea of a blue transducer and emerging capabilities in developing new transducers for the acoustic use case. In this case, we had a lithographic company who actually printed dental appliances. And through an informal conversation at Mass Challenge, we were able to identify and connect them with several US government organizations, including the Air Force, the Office of the Secretary of Defense, and the Navy. And from those conversations, an idea emerged where we could use this approach to manufacture a novel sensitive transducer with a piezoelectric composite as an active layer. And this helps to improve the efficiency and sensitivity of the acoustic transducer. This had actually previously been an unmet requirement because a lot of times for these materials and the transducer geometries required, it limited to only those that could be molded or cut. So MITRE subject matter experts in this case, who do a lot of designs in electronic materials, linked up with MSI Transducers Corporation and Lithos America. And through a collaborative agreement, we established a finite element transducer model that was then fabricated and productized. You can see the unique structure from the 3D printing here illustrated in the slide. MITRE doesn't have the developmental capabilities for the lithography. So we partnered with MSI, who brought their wealth of knowledge on piezoelectric materials processing, packaging, and testing. And then Lithos offered their AM hardware and material development expertise so that we could develop printable piezoelectric materials and geometries. So as I mentioned before, previously this company had no idea that what they were working that was applying just to the dental industry could be used in a completely different and novel way. You might remember from the previous slide earlier on, we have 6 FFRDCs. One of them is dedicated to healthcare. Our healthcare FFRDC allows for rapid collaboration and innovation. There's a lot of ambitious goals with transforming America's healthcare system now, as I know many of us are intimately familiar with. And it's important that we are able to stay nimble and address the emerging threats as a result of this. MITRE works in the public interest here to address structural, technical, behavioral, and social challenges that affect health and healthcare delivery. We operate the healthcare FFRDC on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services. and have lots of different multidisciplinary teams that support this. And the federal agencies that we support include the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, the CDC, the FDA, NIH, and many more, including the Administration for Children and Families. And here we are just illustrating that part of the outcome of that work is a digital health sandbox that has tools that we use to help deliver innovative solutions faster and more securely. And there are lots of more materials, supporting materials with information on this, if healthcare is something that's of interest to you. Just a few other recent highlights. We help the defense and law enforcement community as well. Robotics is something that we've done a great deal of for back in 2005. I was actually on a team on one of the first DARPA Grand Challenges, the Autonomous Vehicle Challenge, out in the desert of California and Nevada. And since then, we've significantly ramped up our capabilities in robotics, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And as a part of that, we found that the defense and law enforcement often have similar requirements for different types of missions. And through that development, we've been linking up with different robotics and drone innovators. And we try to do our best to understand what are some of the best test use cases and test facilities, test ranges, and ensure that those small businesses have the ability to be included in some of those test events, as well as how do we stand up working groups in order to provide sort of a common voice to the drone community that are working across all of these different government sponsors. This Clio Robotics is one of the alumni that we've worked with. They actually had a very unique reconnaissance capability, and we introduced them to the Special Operations Forces, where they were able to test their capability in partnership with SoftWorks in order to test their design in hard to navigate and unfriendly environments for proof of concept. I believe they are successfully on contract now with the Office of Secretary of Defense. I mentioned the working group earlier. This working group was really key to the Massachusetts drone community in particular. But part of this is making sure that our capabilities that we're developing, that there's policy and a public understanding of what those capabilities are doing and capable of, in particular for the local law enforcement elements of that. So a couple of other impact stories that we have. Paisan is one that's particularly interesting, where we had a different kind of impact. This company was very keenly focused on Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, and had not necessarily considered engaging with the United States government. When we were talking with Paisan, a lot of the challenges that they had were related to how their business was set up and established. And they were concerned that they didn't want to be bought up by another organization, and they didn't necessarily want to have financing that would require them to sell any company shares of their organization. So they had not even considered the United States government, given to the slow movement of contracting, and also I think just a lack of understanding of who to engage with. And would it be within the realm of what they're considering feasible for what they are developing to address ALS. I think there were also conversations about where their federal missions that their capability would even apply to. So through engagement with some of our subject matter experts, we were able to facilitate engagements with those government parties that we work with as our direct sponsors, and identify a couple of specific use cases for this technology that would be unique and applicable to particular government cases. We also work with them to understand that there are ways to apply for financing that doesn't require the sale of their company shares. So as noted here, they're now that we now added them to the United States government as one of the many funding organizations supporting their work, in addition to some fairly well-known sizable organizations such as Google, Microsoft, and Bose. Also, analytical space. So MITRE's sort of origin story is based on a lot of command, control, and communication. A lot of our work in the Navy, actually in our naval work programs that I support, is really focused on C5, ISR, and space is one of those critical elements. Commercial space in particular is unique. So we worked to develop for the government this unique ultra wideband spectrum element antenna, which we call FUSE. It's been transitioned through ONR for use within the Navy, but also is applicable to a particular problem related to a satellite relay network. So we were able to work with Analytical Space, who is a network provider, in order to help understand the limitations of our capability, how their capability could be used in conjunction with our prototype, and then transition that capability in part over to multiple different government sponsors. Another impact example, we talked a little bit to the Mass Challenge and some of the accelerators already, but for we met SciArt at an event in Los Angeles. So we have a small site in Los Angeles and also in San Diego in Liberty Station. And our teams that operate in that part of California are active within the region, and had met the Space Accelerator in LA, where we went to an event and met SciArt. And one of the challenges that SciArt had was they didn't really understand if their capability had what it would take to be implemented actively within the government. So they asked us to do an independent assessment of their capability, which we had worked through the Office of the Secretary of Defense to support that assessment. They provided us with an early version of their software for us to perform some beta testing, and a particular thermal module that we intend to use, or that was intended to be used on a satellite capability, is being tested. This was done during 2020, and it's already been actively prototyped within the United States government. So I hope it was useful to provide you guys with an overview of FFRDCs. We are particularly interested in helping to engage in the innovation ecosystem with our guidance to small businesses and folks with really unique ideas. Most interesting, I think, is oftentimes capabilities like that dental example, where it wasn't even considered an option to go into another domain or facet of capability, and how unique that application can actually lead to a novel approach heretofore unimagined. Part of what we can provide each of the individual organizations and industry that are interested in this is an understanding of the technical landscape. We work a lot with acquisition organizations in the government, so we're often being asked to provide independent assessments and market surveys related to particular capabilities. We're often also being asked to perform assessments that inform the requirements that are codified and that executive offices and acquisition are using to guide their resourcing. So there's a lot of different capabilities and information that we have access to within the government that could be useful to our both our industry and academic partners. We're also tracking a lot of the SBIRs, a lot of the BAAs. We don't typically we're prohibited from responding to the BAAs, but we may, in many cases, be asked to help inform what requirements or solicitations are put into the BAAs. And with that, we typically also know what other resources are available outside of direct program dollars that might be part of SBIRs, and for access to our industry experts that have insights into those broad agency announcements and specific RFIs. I mentioned that we're nerds with access and placement. We have this network, and we definitely want to help you take full advantage of it. That innovation network, our partnerships, are areas of collaboration and resources that we can often provide. Also, for the government, we try to help generalize some of the challenges that they want to put forward to the community. In some cases, there are particularly sensitive needs that the government has, and we can help to extrapolate from the very sensitive mission what the technical need is, and help to publicize that challenge in an accessible way. And in doing that, we develop an intimate understanding of that challenge, which is a great place, a great way for us to help to communicate to both the government and to industry partners who are trying to bridge that gap. I mentioned independent technical assessment. I have a whole separate briefing on that as well. And we tend to be asked to help understand what is the technical readiness level of capabilities so that the government can better understand if your innovation is something that is immediately transitionable, or does it need to be partnered with organizations like DARPA or InQtel or other organizations that can help to provide some investment or incubation dollars or even direct R&D funding in order to expedite or support the development of that capability. That also includes risk assessments. We often will do risk assessments for certain capability types and domains to determine what is the level of risk that an organization can accept as they are moving through the technical innovation process and lifetime. And as this, we have a lot of folks that are well-versed in the Department of Defense acquisition process. We actually have an entire technical center devoted to acquisition called the Center for Acquisition and Management Science. That's an entire team who are sort of our special agents in charge of understanding how to take best advantage and maneuver within the acquisition rules and regulations in order to move through those processes and also inform policy changes that might need to take place within the government. But with that access, we oftentimes can figure out ways to shortcut legally the acquisition process and help folks navigate and move through that. So that is really at the heart of our bridging innovation focused talk today. I really appreciate the time to share with everyone about FFRDCs, what we do, and how we can be a resource to small businesses and government connectors and non-traditional partners in helping to address some of our most critical national problems moving forward. Eileen or Julie, back over to you and opening up to any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Sarah. And we've got a question here in the room. And can I also ask, perfect, you already stopped sharing. I'm going to share kind of a conclusion slide that people can take a look at while we answer some questions. And if you have any additional questions, you can put those into chat as well.
So hi, Sarah, Julie here. I just was hoping you could talk to us a little bit or point us to a resource. So on this call, and then we record these and share it afterwards. So you'll have people from government labs and a variety of industry and academic partners. So is there a particular resource that you can point different entities to of how they can work with MITRE to collaborate on some of these initiatives you discussed today?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I closed out before I went to my closing slide, and that is how to contact us. So our Bridging Innovation team can be reached at bridge, that's BRIDG, at mitre.org. And to learn more about our innovation bridge, you can go to bridge.mitre.org. where a lot of the details that I provided here are there and then some. There's a really neat set of tools that help you to connect with different parties and what they are, whether they're a contracting authority, funding opportunity, connector, or challenge, or an accelerator. We map that out for you so you know how to target your capability, and then you can work through our bridge in order to help be connected with those partners.
Okay, great. And for those that didn't see it, if you take the very short survey, you will then have access to these slides. And then Sarah, if you want to send us something short, we can also put that on our LinkedIn page so that all of our followers can see that that resource.
Absolutely. I actually have
happy to do that.
I have a one-page sheet that summarizes, and I'd be happy to provide that for the LinkedIn page.
Yeah, that'd be great. Go ahead and send it to our team, and then we'll get that put on our LinkedIn page, and that can be a resource to others as well.
And then we have a couple questions online. So Sarah, this one's in the chat, but Jen is asking, and I just lost it. Hold on one sec. Are your services available to foreign companies or US only?
That's a great question. We have been able to collaborate with foreign companies for our defense-related capabilities. There are some fairly severe limitations, but for some of our other capabilities and sponsors, we are very much open to that. So you are not excluded. We would be happy to help partner with you as well.
Yeah, and I can add to that. So that's one of the, as a government lab, sometimes we have way tighter restrictions. So MITRE and the other FFRDCs have to follow all the same rules. Like they can only play with the countries on the good list, but they can get to companies and sometimes even go and assess a technology with a lot less red tape than the government labs can, and then they can report back to us. So they're actually an easier way to potentially get into working with a government lab is to go through an FFRDC, because they've got they know the rules, they know what they do, they have the clearances, they're right into what the S&T gaps are and the different things that technologies we're looking for, and they can assess those things and then make those connections. And then sometimes, especially within like the soft community and others, they can kind of cut through the red tape to inform us of something that we, the government labs, need to go look at faster. So instead of it taking a year to get to it, it could be a matter of weeks or months. And Sarah, sorry, Sarah, did I say anything that's not correct with MITRE's capabilities?
No, that's on point. Thanks, Julie.
And then, Sarah, I see there's a question in there from Bobby. Will MATB consider small business partners for the first ever Navy SBIR open topic starting tomorrow? So we are expecting the first open topic to be pre-released tomorrow. And then Bobby, any registered small business that meets the SBIR requirements is welcome to apply to that. That is not done through MATB. That is through the Department of the Navy SBIR office. If you have any additional questions, you can feel free to reach out to us.
And also related to SBIRs, they will be hosting a large event coming up. They're actually hosting it co-located with our Mid-Atlantic Tech Bridge office here in downtown Norfolk. And that is in September, October, it's coming up. October, I think, right? So we will be posting on our LinkedIn and other resources about that SBIR workshop. So how you can get registered, involved, and collaborate and get firsthand information about the Department of Navy SBIR program.
And then Sarah, to your question that you just have about the preferred email, it's actually, we have a QR code that I can go back to for you to set up a meeting with the Tech Bridge. So if you go right there and scan that, schedule a meeting with MATB, and again, you'll get access to these slides if you took the short survey. That's the best way to schedule a meeting with us. And then I see Dan's question came through. So Sarah, I think this is to you. Why do small businesses seek MITRE support as opposed to commercial consulting companies? I get that MITRE is federally funded, but why is that an important differentiator for a small business?
Oh, what a great question. While we are federally funded, we have a unique charter. We were actually, FFRDCs are chartered by Congress to be completely impartial and not compete with for-profit. So where a commercial company might actually subsume the competitor by buying them out or having a shared interest in their capability, MITRE does not. We are entirely operating in the public interest. So our job and the benefit to the for-profit contractor is the only skin in the game that we have is to ensure that they're linked up in order to make the greatest impact to the nation through their capability with the government. So we don't manufacture or the system or the technology that the government must acquire. So that helps us just to be this independent broker for both the government and the small business.
Great, thank you, Sarah. We'll give another minute or so if there are any other questions to ask in chat, but and do you still have a question?
Yeah, just
Okay. And then Sarah, we've actually got one more in the room here.
Hi, Sarah. This is Roy Weiser from MATB. You talked a lot about shortening the acquisition process and that center that you have. What are some of the other methods that you use? Because a lot of times tech bridges are good in getting innovative companies aligned with gaps, but then it's always how do you find resources in order to fund that outside of CIBR and through Ensign or something like that.
So is the question, do we have access to other resources or?
Yes, basically, because you talked about your center having avenues within the FAR procurement, FAR acquisition process that speeds it up. And maybe you could share one example, please.
So I'd say we don't necessarily have any additional accesses than the government has, but we do have an entire team of acquisition professionals who's also operating in the best interest. And their job is to know all of the nuances, nooks and crannies of the acquisition process within the Department of, within the United States government, not just the Department of Defense. So it could be that a capability might have initially been targeted for the Department of Defense, and it's reached a difficult transition. But in actuality, the organization within the government that would benefit from it most directly might actually be another organization within Health and Human Services, for example. So I'd say one of the examples that I can give is related to other transactional authorities. Not that it was anything novel, but we were able to identify other industries that needed, other small businesses that needed to be operating and supporting an OTA that the government didn't know could be a part of the OTA. And so we were able to bring those parties in. That isn't necessarily shortcutting the acquisition process for the small business, but it helps to provide greater access but through visibility. There are other places, for example, within our NIST cybersecurity FFRDC, where we work closely with NIST in organizations where we're setting up those the sort of baseline understanding of the cybersecurity principles, while also understanding intimately the IEEE standards for some of those capabilities. And so knowing both of those links actually helps us to identify special cases and funding within the United States government where that's a special investment for cybersecurity. So we have an example where we were looking at certain zero-day capabilities And instead of applying that to an operational military mission, we were actually able to have that transition into our NISP program much more quickly than having it be operationalized. So it was reducing risk for an even broader group of organizations within the government than just one military organization. That didn't directly answer your question, but I'm certain I can certainly get back with you with some other examples.
No, thank you, Sarah. And I think we have time for one more question. Jen had another question in chat, and it is, how would you distinguish MITRE from a group like DIU? Would it be that you help to mature lower TRLs, whereas DIU is more about inserting mature tech that's ready to field?
Oh, I love this question too. So DIU is actually a government contracting authority. So they have the ability to actually put organizations on contract in addition to being, that connector. MITRE is not a government contracting authority. We are in fact in place to be an independent third-party advisor. So we often help to connect small businesses with organizations like DIU that may not be aware of their existence or of their resources.
All right, thank you so much, Sarah. We really appreciate it. And again, just to close out, we really appreciate everyone attending today. Sarah, especially you for speaking about MITRE, how you're bridging that innovation gap. And as I said before, I've got a link to the survey in the chat. You can use QR code there, and you see our upcoming events if you go to our Eventbrite site to sign up for those. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you at our next Tech Talk.
Thank you very much for the invitation and the conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you.